because this afternoon, what we are privileged to have is Barry, and I have known Barry for many years. His passion will be exciting for you and inspiring. And in addition to that, if you thought you saw a lot of polarities beforehand, just wait until you talk with Barry. And he'll give us that great wisdom that comes from living, breathing, feeling way beyond most of us in our learning curve. So Barry?
So, the generic part-whole polarity. What I suggest is that there is a natural, with all polarities, there's a natural tension between the two poles. And with the part-whole polarity, regardless of the system size, what parts want when they're in the relationship with the whole is the freedom to express their uniqueness and to take initiative. So for example, if this table group right here, if the four of you were a team, and each one of you, what is your name?
Carrie.
Carrie. So Carrie's a member of the team. And what Carrie wants as a part of that team is one thing she would like is some freedom to just be able to, to do what she loves to do and what she wants to do to support the team. She also would like to have her unique contribution be respected and appreciated by the team. So what does she uniquely have to offer? And how can that be appreciated? The other thing she would like to do is to be able to take her own initiative. She'd like to be able to do that without having to check with the rest of the team every time she has to do it, right? So freedom to express her uniqueness and to take initiative is important. Now, Laurie, let's say, is the team lead in this case. So Laurie is thinking, well, I want for Kelly to have her freedom, but somehow I need to make sure that all of the team players feel like they're being treated and respected equally, right? There's some sort of general sense of each of you are being supported and taken care of. And you want her to have her uniqueness, but at the same time, you want all these members to feel connected. So this uniqueness is balanced with connectedness. And while she's taking this individual initiative, you're trying to herd these collection of people together so they can create some group synergy, right? So notice there's a tension here between these two. Now, when Laurie goes, let's say this is a whole hospital system here. Laurie goes and represents her team at a meeting, and one team captain from each of these teams is in this meeting. Now she switches poles. Why? Because what she's there representing her team, what does she want? She wants the freedom for her team to do what it's uniquely able to do, and for her team to take initiative without having to check with the whole hospital system, right? So this scales all the way up to, in a largest picture you might have, how about the United States as a part of the United Nations? What do we want as a country? The freedom to express our uniqueness as a country and to be able to take action without having to check with the UN. Right? So at the same time, that freedom needs to be connected with some sense of equality and our respect for our equality among the community of nations. Our uniqueness needs to be a part of paying attention to our connectedness to all the other nations. And our initiative needs to be balanced with some sort of synergy as we try to act together as a community of nations. So in every case, this polarity is at play. This making sense? All right, so this dynamic is very scalable, which is one of the wonderful things about it. You can apply it in this team or in international affairs. So we've got, if you over-focus on freedom to the neglect of equality, you get inequality. If you over-focus on uniqueness to the neglect of connectedness, you get isolation. And if you over-focus on initiative by the part to the neglect of the synergy, you get a lack of coordination. How does this show up? It shows up in one of our wonderful biblical stories of 12 brothers. Right? You get 12 brothers. Give one brother a special coat to establish his uniqueness and see what happens. Right? He gets sold into slavery. This is not good family dynamics, by the way. But we all know that when we buy presents for our children, on the one hand, we want to get them what they uniquely need and want, but also want them to feel like they're being treated fairly, so we don't get, buy a car for one and a popsicle for the other one. I mean, we try to have some sort of equality in this process. If you over-focus on the other pole, if you over-focus on equality to the neglect of freedom, then you can have a loss of freedom. And if you over-focus on connectedness to the neglect of uniqueness, you can get sameness and excess conformity. And if you over-focus on synergy without allowing initiative for the part, you get this excess conformity and groupthink and all of that. So this polarity shows up in your organization and in our world affairs. This dimension, by the way, in the United States, it is from the beginning of our country, there has been an articulation of the value of freedom and equality, these two dimensions. And it showed up in the Declaration of Independence. So if we just recall how this thing gets started, the Declaration of Independence, we hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, and that they're endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights. And among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. So the focus on freedom and equality have been there since day one. Now, our founding fathers, some of them owned slaves. We were putting Native Americans on reservations, and we weren't allowing our wives to vote. Other than that, we were a totally equality system. So clearly, we had work to do. We still have work to do, but we're moving towards a society that is more able to live out this dual dimension that was articulated at the beginning. The notion that we need to pay attention to freedom and we need to pay attention to equality. So this was right during the Revolutionary War. The next major conflict we had that was really significant was 87 years later. Lincoln reverts back in his effort to talk about saving the Union and dealing with slavery. He reverts back to this initial proposition in the Gettysburg Address. He just starts with a different pole. So in the Gettysburg Address, he starts off in the part pole, which was, by the way, very smart, because the freedom pole is the dominant one in the United States. It got established with the Declaration of Independence. So he says, 87 years ago, our fathers brought forth on this continent a new nation conceived in liberty and dedicated to the proposition that all men are created equal. So notice it reappears. Right? And it's with us, it's been with us from the beginning. So how does it show up in contemporary United States? How about the Tea Party and Occupy Wall Street? These two groups, both of them are, I think, with legitimacy, making a stand on United States history and United States tradition. So a Tea Party, if we look at it this way, if we look at it as like two trains on a single railroad track, which is often the way we see polarities, as a zero-sum game. So if one group moves forward 30 feet, the other one has to move backward because you're on, that's the only option. It's a zero-sum game. It's either or. But if you can see it as a both and, what if the Tea Party and Occupy Wall Street are both right? The way you'd show that would be in this picture. And so if we look at the Tea Party, for example, what do? They value that freedom, entrepreneurial initiative.